If it's true, it's true. Now, I might not look like it, but I have a superpower. When I'm driving up to a light that has been green for a long time and it looks like it might turn red, or if it's red and I want it to turn green, then all I have to do is wiggle my fingers at it as I'm holding onto the steering wheel, and it will either stay green or it will turn green by the time that I get there. And this works almost 5% of the time, sometimes. Okay, so it doesn't really work. And I obviously don't have a superpower. Wouldn't that be awesome? Forget flying or super strength. I want to have the ability to turn a light green while I'm driving. Definitely getting old. But I think there's a lot of people that would choose this if they could. Think how much time you would save on your commute. But what if this was a thing? What if everyone could change the light to green at their discretion? Say, I'm pulling up to an intersection where the light is about to turn red, and wiggle wiggle, green you stay. But then the driver of the 18 wheeler who wants to cross the road that I'm on decides, nope, the light in his direction needs to turn green. So he wiggle wiggles, and voila, my little car gets yeeted across the intersection to land ignominiously in the ditch. Yeeted. I'm sorry about that. I've got a seventh grader at home. But stop and think about it. If everyone could make up their own rules whenever they felt like it, things would get messy. My little car is no match for an 18 wheeler. And if there is no standard by which to operate while on the road, well, I guess it's might makes right. If it's true, it's true. I first heard this from one of my instructors when I was in school, though you may be more familiar with the opposite. There was probably a time in your scholastic career that you got an answer marked wrong on a test, even though it was technically correct. It just turns out that the teacher was trying to make a specific point and so was looking for a specific answer. Yes, your answer might have been technically correct, it just wasn't what they were looking for. The instructor that I had was very gracious to us in that if the answer that we gave was true, he would mark it correct on the test, even if it wasn't the answer that he was looking for. Now, we understand that there's nothing wrong with wanting a specific answer because there is a specific focus. But when we get a correct answer wrong, it can really make us stop and realize that there are usually more aspects to a given subject than we might have initially considered. Do you remember these? These little wooden blocks that kids play with? On one side you have an M, and on the opposite side you have a W. Now, if I'm holding it up and I say, look, that's an M, and you say, well, no, that's a W, which one of us is right? There are people, including myself, that struggle because we don't always see the whole picture. I think that because if it's true was to my benefit in test taking, I grabbed a hold of it and it became something of a mantra for me. If I learned something to be true that I originally doubted, well, if it's true, it's true. If I hear something to be reasonable that is coming from a previously considered unreasonable source, well, if it's true, it's true. Although not a smooth process, it started to change the way that I think about things. I began to see the need of becoming more open minded. Not so open minded that the truth escapes, but open minded enough to allow more truth in. So, what are the implications of if it's true, it's true? Now, the first thing that we're going to have to wrestle with is whether the truth is objective or subjective. If that block that you're looking at is red, well, if you're colorblind, you will honestly not see the color red the same way that I do. Does that mean that the truth is subjective? How can I even tell if I'm viewing something objectively or subjectively? If I'm only considering the object, say this block, then I'm thinking objectively. Now, if I'm considering not the block, but how I see the block, then I'm thinking subjectively. Well, so what's the truth? The object itself, or the way that I'm seeing the object? I have a friend who is colorblind. Before I met him, I never realized that traffic lights are red, yellow, and green, in that order from top to bottom when the light is vertical. It never even crossed my mind, because for me, well, it's the red light that means stop. But for my friend, it's the light at the top that means stop. You see, he has trouble distinguishing between the colors red and green. We literally don't see things in the same way, but we both obey the light that means stop when it lights up. The thing is, we don't obey it because we agree together to do so. Before I ever got my driver's license, this was the law. Now, one might argue otherwise, saying this example is too simplistic, or it really doesn't touch on, well, any number of objections that one could come up with. But when the rubber meets the road and lives are literally on the line, no one thinks that stoplights are subjective. When applying what we believe to be the truth, objectivity always wins the day. There is, however, a more modern shade of subjectivity that has become fairly common. You might have heard someone say, well, that's my truth. Or you may have even said it yourself. But what does my truth mean? It's sometimes expressed in another way. That is, lived experience. Lived experience, in my estimation, is more precise, and its definition is self evident. That is, the experiences that I've lived through. But is lived experience a valid determinant of the truth? Imagine, if you would, the history of all mankind. Now, let's just go back to the pyramids, about 4,500 years ago. Compare the lived experiences of 4,500 years worth of people to your own. My life is not even a blip on the radar of 4,500 years. Okay, let's make it smaller. Imagine only the experiences of the people that have been alive while you have. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you were born in the year 2000. Now, Google says that 108 billion people have been alive in the last 25 years. That's 108 billion lives worth of experience. Compare that to the experiences that you've had in your life. Judging only by my lived experience is going to give me an extremely limited view of almost anything. This is where that little red block needs to be turned. And if we do, oh, there is a W there as well. Consider Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 17. The first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. If you stop and think about it, my opinion is formed primarily by my first experiences. And my opinion, based on those experiences, is always the first witness that I call upon when making any judgment. My truth, my lived experience, although not necessarily wrong, is only one aspect of the whole. If I understand that my lived experiences can color my perception of the whole truth, well, for one, I will hopefully be less quick to anger when people see things differently than I do. Also, I should be not only open to, but even desirous of looking more closely into the truth. If possible, I ought to make every effort to correct my vision. What do I mean by that? Go search YouTube for a video of people who are given corrective glasses for colorblindness, or of babies with poor eyesight who are given glasses so that they can clearly see for the first time in their lives. In the colorblindness videos, you'll probably find an older man that is satisfied with his colorblindness. You see, he's never known anything else, and he's always been able to get along just fine, so why change? But he humors his family, and he puts on those glasses, and then he's brought to tears when his eyes are open to the colorful world around him. And the babies, who can't understand why those awful glasses are being forced onto their faces, they are in awe the first time that they can clearly see their mother's face. I might not see the need to look at things differently It might be uncomfortable and seemingly forced upon me. But if I can start to see things clearly, I will realize that the truth is truly a beautiful thing. Now, this brings me to how we obtain the truth. We have the object, but what about the medium? If I look at an object, the object is the source of the truth. But in looking, my eyes become the medium by which the truth is obtained. Now, if truth is objective, then the medium by which it's revealed is really irrelevant. Now, I can see the M, but if I close my eyes, I can also feel it. My sense of sight or touch only reveals the truth that is already there. If we can understand that the medium is only the way in which we obtain the truth and not the source of the truth, then it will start to change the way how we think, especially since other people are one of the primary mediums by which we obtain information. And people can be rather polarizing. Consider how polarized our society is right now. If you're on Team M, then you're right. And if you're on Team W, well, you're wrong. Because it is so clearly evident that it's an M that's on the block, not a W, and everyone on Team M agrees. Since this is so obvious, then the only way that you can deny this truth is that your motives must be impure. And since your motives are impure, well, what else is wrong with you? Maybe everything. This can devolve into, well, you're not only wrong, but everything that comes from you and those who agree with you must be wrong as well. What's more, you're not only wrong, but because you are so clearly wrong, you may actually be evil. Let's use the modern embodiment of all evil as an example. No, not Barney, Hitler. Hitler is the go-to villain that is used to end all discourse. If you want to paint your opponent as evil and therefore not worthy of listening to, just put a little mustache on him. Imagine, though, if Hitler had said something like, you know what? You really shouldn't torture babies. Would he have been right or wrong? Now, any rational person is going to instinctively know that torturing babies is bad. Does Hitler saying something make it right or wrong? Well, of course not. A thing is right or wrong, that is, true or false, based on its source and not on the medium by which we obtain it. And this brings it all back to me. That is, the one observing the truth. What is my default setting in regards to that observation? There are three people that are spoken of at the beginning of the biblical book of Proverbs. There's the simple, the fool, and the wise. Now, the simple can be thought of as a kid just coming into his own. We've all been there, inexperienced and unsure. You know, when we were just coming out of the time when we're young and adults are making all, or at least the big decisions for us. Well, how about the fool? This is really that same simple kid who, when he is first given the opportunity to make his own decisions, does so without thinking. He acts merely to fulfill his immediate desires without really considering the consequences. He exemplifies the saying, fools rush in. Well, then you have the wise. She is prudent, inquisitive, and seeks after advice. She considers what the outcome of her actions will be before she acts. The thing is, we all start out simple. The question we have to ask ourselves is, where do we go from here? Foolishness is found in acting on impulse. You could say animal instinct. But in doing so, we lower ourselves to the same level as animals. If you think that has its perks, watch what a dog does shortly after it vomits. Wisdom, on the other hand, is found in seeking the truth. This doesn't mean that we will make perfect decisions every time, but just as acting on impulse lowers us to the same realm as animals, refusing to give in to impulse raises us up to a realm of more than just man. Why we do what we do is more than just synapses firing off in our brains. At least it is if we seek to be more than just animals. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 19 tells us, Test all things, hold fast to that which is good. So test the source of what you believe to be true. Test the medium from which you obtain the truth. Test your own lived experiences. And yes, you should even put to test everything that I have just said.